Hello and a very warm welcome back to my YouTube channel. Now, about a year ago, I made a video on the subject of whether the UK property market would crash in 2023. At the time, I predicted modest falls rather than a crash. Now, as has transpired, at least in nominal terms, falls have been even more modest than I predicted. According to Zoopla, the average UK house price fell by 1.1% in the 12 months to October 2023. Nationwide reported an average house price drop of 3.3%, and Halifax was higher at 4.7%. However, in real terms, house price falls have been nearer to 15% since their peak in March 2022. Now the question is, what will happen in 2024? A number of forecasters like Knight Frank and Capital Economics are predicting falls of 10%, as is the Office for Budget Responsibility. Some predictions are even worse. The website Confused.com has predicted 20% falls, and other experts have gone as far as 35%. Now, there are many reasons to be pessimistic about the UK house market. Firstly, GDP growth has been very flat over the last year. Although the UK will avoid a recession in 2023, it's expected GDP will have grown by only around 0.5%. But worse still, many forecasters are predicting that GDP growth in 2024 and 2025 will be less than 1%. Now, consistently low growth is usually followed by house price falls. And this happened in the early 1990s. And as we saw more recently in the financial crash of 2008. The second reason to be pessimistic is that mortgage holders in the UK, around 75%, are on fixed mortgages of typically 2 and 5 years. And more importantly, most of these mortgage holders have yet to be hit with the Bank of England's 14 straight interest rate rises. Now in 2024, when many will have to face the new reality, you could see a number of distressed sales which will depress property prices. Point 3 is that price to income ratios when it comes to buying property is at a near record high, around the 7 mark across the UK. But of course it does vary by where you live in the UK. So in London it's very high, around the 13 mark, in Edinburgh around 9, Manchester about 7, and Aberdeen lower at around 5. But the upshot is, most people, in particular the young, are struggling to get on the housing ladder. It's just too expensive. Number 4, another problem facing the UK is that taxes are at their highest. They're at their highest they've been in living memory. The UK is now considered a high tax country. And of course, this means less money in the hands of people trying to get on the property ladder, or indeed those trying to pay their mortgages. And also, there's been less foreign investment as well. The fifth and final point I want to make is that the buy-to-let market is much less attractive than it used to be. Many landlords are leaving the market because of changes to mortgage relief, a surcharge on stamp duty, and more tenant protection. Now, this looks as though it's only going to get worse with the impending Renters Reform Bill. If this were to go through, then many more landlords will leave the market and hence depress property prices further. And of course, rents will go up as well. However, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I think in 2024 property prices will not collapse in the UK. And the first reason is, of course, a lack of supply. Now, for decades, the UK has not been building enough homes to meet supply needs. According to the Centre for Cities, an independent urban policy research unit, the housing deficit would take at least half a century to fill, even if the UK's government's target to build 300,000 homes a year is reached. Therefore, demand for UK property will remain inelastic. My second point relates very much to my first point, and that is immigration. Now, despite leaving the EU and the single market, immigration has increased in the UK. In 2022, net migration added 606,000 to the UK population, and this was an increase of 118,000 compared to 2021. Now, although these figures are likely to be lower in the future, it's more than probable that for the foreseeable future, the UK will see positive migration on a yearly basis. And this will obviously mitigate against price drops in 2024 and beyond. There is a lot of immigration in coming to the UK. My third reason is that in 2024, we're likely to see interest rates decrease, especially in view of the fact that inflation is coming down. So again, this will help counteract house price falls. Inflation recently fell from 6.7% to 4.6%. And since wages have been rising in the UK as well, this is good news for the housing market as workers are finally seeing some real wage growth. My fourth point regards rents. In the last couple of years, we have seen rents shoot up. In London, workers are spending on average over 35% of their income on rent. And even in other regions like the East Midlands, North West, Wales and Northern Ireland, the figure is around 30%. This obviously makes renting very unattractive. And when renting becomes a very expensive option, people are more likely to try and get on the housing ladder, even if their finances are incredibly stretched. Now, finally, my fifth point, and I think this is a point which hasn't been mentioned very much. The UK, over the last year or so, has become a more stable country politically, especially since the drama of Liz Truss's mini budget and, of course, the toxicity of Boris Johnson's reign as Prime Minister. We're seeing a lot more stability. We're seeing the UK's relations improve with the European Union and beyond, and also with Ireland. Now, I personally believe that any price drops will not be very heavy. Perhaps, if I had to make a prediction, it would be around the 5% mark, nominally. Of course, there is inflation to add, so perhaps in real terms we may see another 8 to 9% drop. Now, of course, this is still a massive drop. So from the peak, house prices in the UK may drop in real terms eventually by about 20 to 25% or a bit more. So even though nominally it doesn't feel as though it's going to be such a big drop, in real terms, it's a massive drop. And it is almost like a mini crash. Although when I see predictions like 35% drop in nominal terms in 2024, I take those predictions with a pinch of salt. Now, does that mean in the future the UK property market could be a good place to actually make money? My answer is no. And simply because GDP growth is going to be very, very low over the next 3 to 4 years. In every one of the next 4 years, it's predicted GDP growth in the UK will be less than 2%, which in all honesty, that isn't great. And so for that reason in particular, I think property prices are not going to increase. We're going to see like a gradual fall and a real fall perhaps of 25% from the peak in real terms from March 2022. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think 2024 we're going to see a crash or just a slight fall in property prices, perhaps, as I'm saying, nominally about 5% or so? Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks ever so much for watching this video, and I shall see you soon on the next.